Imagine this, an old man sitting alone in his dimly lit study, his hands trembling as he holds a stack of old letters. The room is filled with the faint smell of aged paper and dust. His name is Harold, 78 years old, a man who built his life brick by brick through hard work and quiet dedication. But tonight, everything he believed in is about to crumble. As he reads the words on those yellowed pages, his heart races. How could they? He whispers to himself. These aren't just letters. They're proof of a betrayal that spans decades, a lifetime of deceit hidden right under his nose. What would you do if the people you trusted most turned out to be your worst enemies? Stay with me because Harold's story is one of heartbreak, cunning, and a payback that left everyone speechless. Harold had always been the pillar of his family. Born in a small town during the tough times of the Great Depression, he learned early on that nothing comes easy. He worked in factories, saved every penny, and eventually started his own small business, a hardware store that grew into a modest chain. By the time he retired, he had a comfortable home, savings, and 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. They were his pride and joy. Or so he thought. His wife, Martha, had passed away 10 years ago, leaving him to rely on his kids for company and support. They visited often, helped with chores, and always said how much they loved him. But lately, something felt off. Harold noticed whispers when he entered rooms, hurried phone calls that ended abruptly. He brushed it off as old-age paranoia. Until that fateful evening, it started with a simple task, cleaning out the attic. Harold was looking for some old photos to share with his grandchildren. Instead, he found a hidden box tucked away behind dusty shelves. Inside were letters, emails printed out, and even bank statements that didn't add up. His eyes widened as he pieced it together. His children had been siphoning money from his accounts for years, small amounts at first, then larger ones. They had forged signatures on documents, claiming he was losing his mind to gain control over his estate. The betrayal hit him like a thunderbolt. How could his own flesh and blood do this? Tears streamed down his wrinkled face as memories flooded back. Sacrifices he made, nights he worked late to provide for them. The pain was unbearable, a deep ache in his chest, but in that moment of despair a spark ignited. Anger replaced sorrow. Harold wasn't done yet. He would expose them, make them face the truth. But how? The plan was just beginning to form. Let's go back to where it all started to understand the depth of this betrayal. Harold's life was a testament to perseverance. As a young man, he married Martha, the love of his life, in a simple ceremony under a blooming cherry tree. They dreamed big but lived modestly. Their first child, Robert, arrived soon after, followed by James and then Emily. Harold poured his soul into his work, expanding the hardware store while Martha managed the home. Family first, he always said, teaching his kids the value of honesty and hard work. Weekends were filled with laughter, picnics by the lake, stories around the dinner table. He saved for their educations, paid for weddings, even helped with down payments on houses. In return, they showered him with affection, or so it seemed. As the years passed, Harold noticed subtle changes. Robert, the eldest, started asking for loans just to tide over. James talked about investments that needed Harold's backing. Emily, the apple of his eye, suggested he update his will for peace of mind. He obliged, trusting them blindly. After Martha's death from a long illness, Harold felt more vulnerable. His children stepped in, handling his finances, doctor's appointments, everything. "We're here for you, Dad," they'd say, hugging him tightly. But behind those smiles lurked greed. The letters Harold found revealed emails between them. "Dad's getting forgetful. Perfect time to push for power of attorney. Split the assets evenly once he's in a home." They had been planning to declare him incompetent, force him into assisted living, and seize his properties. The deceit wasn't just financial. It was emotional warfare. Harold's world shattered. He sat there in the attic, clutching the evidence, his mind racing. How long had this been going on? Since Martha's death earlier? The questions tormented him, building a storm of emotions, sadness for lost trust, anger at their ingratitude. But Harold was no quitter. He decided then and there. This betrayal would not define his end. It would fuel his comeback. The conflict escalated as Harold delved deeper into the evidence. He couldn't sleep that night, his mind replaying every suspicious moment. Remember that time Robert borrowed money for a business venture that never materialized? Or when James insisted on managing the bank accounts to make it easier? Emily's frequent visits suddenly seemed calculated, always probing about his health. Harold felt foolish, but more than that, heartbroken. He loved them fiercely, yet they saw him as a cash cow, not a father. To confirm his suspicions, Harold quietly hired a private investigator. A friend from his old business days recommended one. Discreet meetings in coffee shops away from prying eyes. The reports came back devastating. Bank transfers traced to his children's accounts, forged documents filed with lawyers, even emails discussing how to speed up his decline with subtle manipulations like switching his medications. The investigator warned, "They're close to filing for guardianship. You need to act fast." Harold's hands shook as he read the details. Shock turned to rage, a burning fire in his belly.
How dare they?
He had given them everything, and this was their thanks? The emotional toll was immense. Nights filled with tears, days with isolation. He avoided family gatherings, feigning illness, all while gathering more proof. Suspense built with each passing day. Would they notice his distance? One close call. Emily dropped by unexpectedly, eyeing the attic ladder. "What have you been up to, Dad?" she asked sweetly. Harold forced a smile, his heart pounding. "Just reminiscing, dear." Inside, he seethed. The betrayal wasn't just about money. It was a stab at his dignity, his legacy, but Harold channeled that pain into resolve. He began sketching a plan not for destruction but for exposure. A payback that would reveal their true colors to the world and especially to themselves. Now, with the truth laid bare, Harold moved to the revenge phase. He knew violence or harm wasn't the way. That would make him no better than them. Instead, he aimed for justice through revelation, a shocking payback that would leave them exposed and regretful. First, he consulted a trusted lawyer, one not connected to the family. Together, they reviewed the evidence. Forged signatures, unauthorized withdrawals amounting to hundreds of thousands. "We can press charges," the lawyer said, "but let's make it personal." Harold nodded, a sly smile forming for the first time in weeks. The plan was meticulous. Harold updated his will secretly, cutting out his children and leaving everything to charities he cherished, ones for elderly care and family counseling. He set up hidden cameras in his home, capturing their visits and conversations. Then the masterstroke. He invited the whole family for a special dinner to celebrate his upcoming birthday. "I have big news," he teased in the invitation. They arrived eagerly, no doubt expecting more handouts. Suspense hung in the air as they chatted, laughing about old times. Harold played along, his voice steady despite the storm inside. Little did they know this gathering was a trap. He had arranged for the lawyer and investigator to join later, and even tipped off a local journalist friend about a family scandal. As dinner progressed, Harold's mind raced. Would it work? The emotional weight was heavy. Part of him still loved them, hoped for redemption, but betrayal like this demanded accountability. He took a deep breath, ready for the climax. The moment of truth was approaching, and it would change everything. The climax unfolded like a scene from a thriller. As dessert was served, Harold stood up, his voice firm but trembling with emotion. "Family, I've gathered you here because I've discovered something heartbreaking." The room fell silent, forks clinking awkwardly. He pulled out the box of evidence, projecting emails and statements on a screen he had set up. Gasps echoed as they read their own words. Plans to institutionalize him, divide his assets. Robert's face turned pale. James stammered excuses. Emily burst into tears. "Dad, it's not what it looks like," she cried. But Harold held up a hand. "It is exactly what it looks like. You've betrayed me, your own father, for greed." The lawyer entered then, explaining the legal ramifications. Fraud charges pending, assets frozen. The investigator played recordings of their scheming calls. The family was left speechless, shock rippling through them like a wave. Harold's heart ached seeing their faces, regret mixed with denial. But he pressed on. "I could have you arrested tonight," he said, "but I'm giving you one chance to make amends. Apologize, return what's stolen, and rebuild trust." Suspense peaked as they whispered among themselves. Robert broke first, admitting everything, tears flowing. "We were wrong, Dad. We got lost in our own problems." James and Emily followed, begging forgiveness. Harold felt a mix of relief and sorrow. The payback wasn't about ruining them. It was about awakening them. As the night ended, police were on standby, but Harold chose mercy, with conditions. The exposure was complete, their deceit laid bare. In the resolution, life shifted dramatically. The children, humbled and ashamed, worked to repay the money through installments and honest jobs. Harold, with his lawyer's help, set up trusts to ensure fairness but with oversight. Family therapy sessions began raw and emotional, uncovering years of unspoken resentments. Harold forgave, but trust rebuilt slowly. He moved to a cozy retirement community, surrounded by new friends, his legacy intact through charitable donations. The story made local news anonymously at Harold's request, highlighting elder abuse and family greed. His children changed. Robert started a support group for families in crisis. James volunteered at senior centers. Emily became his closest companion again. The emotional journey left scars, but also growth. Harold found peace in his garden, reflecting on a life well lived. The betrayal had nearly broken him, but the payback restored his power. Shock turned to strength, anger to understanding. And so, dear viewers, Harold's tale teaches us a profound lesson. Trust is precious, but blind trust can lead to heartbreak. In a world where greed can corrupt even family bonds, stay vigilant. Cherish those who truly care, and remember, justice isn't always about punishment. It's about truth and redemption. If you've faced betrayal, know that you're not alone. Rise above, expose the deceit, and find your own path to healing. What would you have done in Harold's shoes? Share in the comments below. If this story moved you, like and subscribe for more tales of revenge and resilience. Until next time, stay strong.